Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Storytime English. I am so glad you are here with me today. Take a deep breath, sit back, relax, and let this story carry you gently through time. Now, imagine for a moment you are standing in a dark room. The air smells of oil and dirt. The floor is cold and wet. Around you, children are working. Some are only 10 years old. Their hands are black. Their faces are tired. They work from early morning until late at night, and nobody cares. In the corner of this room, there is a small boy. He is 12 years old. He is thin, he is hungry, he is alone. And he is ashamed, because only a few months ago, his life was completely different. That boy will grow up to become the most famous writer in the English language. His books will change the way people think about poverty, about children, and about kindness. His name is Charles Dickens. And this is his story. The year was 1812. In a small city called Portsmouth, on the southern coast of England, a baby boy was born. His father, John Dickens, worked as a clerk in the Navy pay office. A clerk is someone who does paperwork and keeps records. His mother, Elizabeth, was a cheerful and lively woman. The family was not rich, but they were comfortable. They had enough. The family moved often, from Portsmouth to London, from London to Chatham, a town near the sea. Charles's earliest happy memories were in Chatham. The countryside was green. The air was clean. He played in the fields and explored the old castle nearby. It was a good place for a child with a big imagination. Young Charles was a bright child. He loved to read. He read every book he could find in his father's small collection. He read adventure stories. He read fairy tales. He read a book called Robinson Crusoe about a man alone on an island. He read the Arabian Nights, full of magic and wonder. He loved the way words could create entire worlds. When he read, he was not a small boy in a small house. He was a hero. He was an explorer. He was free. His father noticed this love of reading. He encouraged it. He took young Charles on long walks and told him stories about the people they saw. Charles watched everything. He watched the way people walked. He watched the way they talked. He noticed the small details: a torn coat, a nervous laugh, a sad pair of eyes. Even as a child, he was already learning to see the world the way a writer sees it. There was a beautiful house on a hill near Chatham. Its name was Gad's Hill Place. Charles looked at it with wonder. His father told him, "If you work very hard, one day you might own a house like that." Charles never forgot those words. Remember this house. It will return later in our story. 9. But life, as you may know, does not always move in a gentle direction. Charles's father had a serious problem. He spent more money than he earned. He bought things the family could not afford. He lived beyond his means, and slowly, quietly, the debts grew larger. In 1824, when Charles was 12 years old, everything fell apart. His father could not pay his debts. In those days in England, if you could not pay what you owed, they put you in prison. People called it a debtor's prison, and that is exactly what happened. John Dickens was arrested and sent to a prison called the Marshalsea. The whole family went with him. In those times, the wife and younger children often lived inside the prison with the father. But Charles did not go. They sent him to work. They sent him to a factory that made shoe polish, a dark paste used to make boots shine. The name of the factory was Warren's Blacking Factory. Charles sat at a small table near a window. His job was to put labels on bottles of shoe polish. He did this for 10 hours a day, 6 days a week. He earned 6 shillings a week. A shilling was a small coin. 6 shillings was barely enough to eat. Can you imagine that? A boy who loved books, a boy who dreamed of adventure, a boy who saw the world with the eyes of a poet. Now he was sitting in a cold factory, putting labels on bottles, surrounded by rats and dust. He was deeply ashamed. He felt abandoned. He felt that the world had forgotten him. He later wrote about this time. He asked one question: How could my parents let this happen to me? That question stayed with him for the rest of his life. But something important was happening inside him during those dark months. He was watching. He was listening. He saw the other children in the factory, children with no hope, no education, no future. He walked through the streets of London after work, and London in those days was a city full of differences. Rich and poor lived side by side. Beautiful carriages rolled past children sleeping in doorways. Grand houses stood next to streets filled with mud and garbage. He walked past the prisons. He walked past the workhouses. These were terrible places where they sent the poorest people to live and work. He walked past market stalls where people shouted and argued. He walked through fog so thick he could barely see his own hands. He saw the beggars. He saw the homeless. He saw the cruelty of a world that did not care about its poorest people. And he remembered everything, every face, every voice, every smell. London was teaching him, even though he did not know it yet. The city was filling him with stories. After a few months, Charles's father received a small inheritance money from a relative who had died. He paid his debts and left prison. The family was free again. His father took Charles out of the factory. Charles went back to school. But here is something remarkable. Charles never told anyone about the factory. Not his friends, not his wife, not his children. He kept it a secret for almost his entire life. The shame was too deep. The pain was too strong. He only wrote about it privately, in private papers that people found after his death. Those months in the factory never left his mind. They became a wound that never fully healed. But that wound would become his greatest gift. Charles finished school and began working as a clerk in a law office. He did not like the law. It was slow. It was boring. He wanted something more, so he taught himself a special skill. He learned shorthand, a fast way of writing that uses symbols instead of full words. He became very good at it, and he used this skill to become a reporter. He reported on debates in the British Parliament, the place where laws are made. He traveled around England. He covered elections and political events. He wrote quickly, clearly, and with energy. People noticed his writing. They said it was different. It was alive. And then, in 1833, something wonderful happened. Charles wrote a short story. He sent it to a magazine, and they published it. He saw his words in print for the first time. He later wrote that he walked for hours through the streets of London that night, his eyes full of tears. Not tears of sadness, tears of joy. Think about that for a moment. More stories followed. People liked them. They liked the way Dickens wrote about ordinary people. They liked the humor. They liked the emotion. And then, in 1836, at just 24 years old, Charles Dickens published his first novel. He called it The Pickwick Papers. Dickens published the book in monthly parts. Each month, a new chapter appeared in a magazine. People across England waited eagerly for the next part. It was like a television series today. Everyone wanted to know what happened next. The Pickwick Papers made Dickens famous almost overnight. That same year, 1836, Charles married a young woman named Catherine Hogarth. They would have 10 children together. His family grew large. His responsibilities grew heavy. And so he wrote and wrote and wrote, always with energy, always with speed, always meeting his deadlines. And he did not stop there. Over the next 30 years, Dickens wrote some of the most beloved books in the English language. He wrote Oliver Twist, the story of a poor orphan boy living on the streets of London. An orphan is a child without parents. The parents have died. Oliver is hungry. He holds up his empty bowl and says, "Please, sir, I want some more." Those 7 words became one of the most famous lines in all of literature. He wrote A Christmas Carol. It is the story of a cold and greedy old man named Scrooge. On Christmas Eve, 3 ghosts visit Scrooge. They show him his past, his present, and his future. And through these visits, Scrooge learns to be kind. He learns that money is not the most important thing in life. This book changed the way people celebrate Christmas. Before Dickens, Christmas in England was a quiet, small holiday. After A Christmas Carol, it became a time of giving, of family, of caring for others. This one small book shaped the way we celebrate Christmas today. Giving, warmth, thinking of the poor. Dickens wrote it in just 6 weeks. He wrote David Copperfield. It is a story about a boy who suffers in childhood but finds happiness through hard work and love. Dickens himself said it was his favorite book, and many people believe David Copperfield is really the story of Dickens's own life. He wrote Great Expectations, about a poor boy named Pip who dreams of becoming a gentleman. He wrote A Tale of Two Cities, set during the French Revolution. The first line of that book is one of the most famous opening lines ever written. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. He wrote Bleak House, and many more. In total, Dickens wrote 15 novels. Each book held unforgettable characters. Some were funny, some were frightening, some were heartbreaking, but they all felt real. They felt alive. And here is what made Dickens truly special. He did not write about kings and queens. He did not write about soldiers and battles. He wrote about ordinary people, poor people, forgotten people, children who worked in factories, families who lived in cold, dark rooms, people who had nothing. He gave them a voice. When people read his books, they could not look away from the suffering of the poor. His stories made people feel, and when people feel, they begin to think, and when they begin to think, they begin to change. Dickens became more than a writer. He became a force for change. His books helped change laws in England. Because of his writing, people paid more attention to the conditions in factories, in prisons, and in schools. He showed the world that the way society treated its weakest members was wrong, and the world listened. But Dickens was not finished yet. He did not only write, he also performed. He loved to stand on a stage and read his stories to large audiences. He was a brilliant performer. He did not simply read the words on the page. He became the characters. He changed his voice for each one. He whispered. He shouted. He made faces. He moved his hands. People who watched him said it was like watching a one-man play. He made people laugh and cry in the same evening. Thousands of people came to see him. He traveled across England. He traveled to America twice. When he arrived in New York, crowds gathered at the harbor to meet him. People stood in line for hours to buy tickets to his shows. Everywhere he went, it was the same. People loved him. They loved his stories. They loved the way he told them. He worked without rest. He wrote constantly. He edited magazines. He gave speeches. He organized charity events. He was always moving, always creating, always giving. And do you remember the house on the hill, Gad's Hill Place? The house young Charles admired as a boy in Chatham? In 1856, Dickens bought that house. The dream of the small boy had come true. He lived there for the rest of his life. But this endless work was slowly breaking his body. His health grew worse, year after year. His friends told him to rest. His doctors told him to stop the reading tours. But he would not listen. He kept going. He kept performing. He kept writing. In 1870, at the age of 58, Charles Dickens suffered a stroke. A stroke is when something goes wrong inside the brain. It happened suddenly, at his home, during dinner. He fell to the floor. He never woke up. He died the next day, on the 9th of June, 1870. The news spread across England and across the world. People wept in the streets. Shops closed. Newspapers filled their pages with words of love and respect. The country had lost its greatest storyteller. He wanted a simple funeral, a quiet goodbye, and that is what he received. But he was buried in Westminster Abbey. It is a famous church in London, where kings, queens, and great heroes of English history rest. It is said that for days after his burial, people came to leave flowers at his grave. Ordinary people, The kind of people he wrote about. The line of visitors did not stop. And now, my friends, the story is almost over. But before we finish, I want to speak to you for a moment. Charles Dickens began his life in a dark factory. He was a child with dirty hands and an empty stomach. The world did not see him. The world did not care about him. But he had something inside him. Something small and quiet, like a candle in a dark room. He had words. He held on to them. He practiced them. He shaped them. And with those words, he built something that will last forever. And you, my friend, you are doing the same thing right now. You are sitting here, listening to a story in English. Maybe sometimes it feels difficult. Maybe sometimes the words are not clear. Maybe sometimes you wonder if you are making progress. But you are. Every word you understand today is a word you did not understand before. Every story you listen to is another step forward. You are building something, my friend, word by word, sentence by sentence, story by story. Just like Dickens, you are turning words into something powerful, something that is yours, and that is something to be proud of. Keep going, keep listening, keep learning. Your story is still being written. This is Storytime English. Leave a comment and tell me, what is your favorite book or story, and why does it matter to you? I would love to hear your answer. If you enjoy learning English through stories like this one, please subscribe. There are many more journeys waiting for you here. Until next time, my friends, take care of yourselves and never stop learning.